Last light on sheep country in SA's outback shows a landscape that's changed a lot since white settlement. But a group of scientists have been trying to find out how it would look without grazing by fencing part of it off from stock and rabbits.
Here we have a really good comparison across fence of the condition of the rangeland when it has been degraded by overgrazing and the reserve that has been protected for almost 100 years now.
The differences are clear. Inside the fence, the ground is covered with grasses, shrubs and lichens. Outside, however,
the substrate, the soil is loose, is exposed to rainfall, is exposed to wind. Water is not going to infiltrate easily, nutrients are lost, and hence the system is unlikely to recover even if there is a substantial decrease in grazing.
For nearly 100 years, University of Adelaide researchers have been tracking the recovery of this formerly degraded rangeland.
6'5".
And we measure the size, so we know exactly where each individual is, how big they are, how they have changed over time, and that accumulates long-term data on the dynamics of rangelands.
For the last 170 years, the arid rangelands have been primarily leased for grazing. The state government promised a major shake-up of the laws regulating pastoral leases, putting out a new bill with three main changes: extending leases from 42 to 100 years, removing maximum stock limits, and switching in-person inspections to remote monitoring. The government says the changes will give pastoralists more flexibility. But non-graziers wanted something different: more public access and ways to open up pastoral land. Many people told the government they'd like to see different things on pastoral leases, like ecotourism or conservation. But the new Act says if you want to do something different on these lands, it's got to be approved, and it will only be allowed if it supports grazing. Conservation has been removed as a primary purpose of the law. New guidelines also make it harder to change land from grazing to conservation reserve. Green groups are furious.
Absolutely outdated view. It's regressive even relative to the existing 1989 Act. This flips back nearly 100 years to the way of thinking about what to do with this country.
This is a massive land area we're talking about, and this bill essentially deregulates the pastoral industry.
But pastoralists say the department is underfunded and badly behind schedule on inspections, affecting the financial security of stations.
Under this new bill, I think we're going to be assessed and monitored more.
The industry says satellite monitoring can be done more often and more easily.
There's going to be increased compliance, there's going to be increased monitoring in a new modern monitoring system. And it's going to look at alternative uses like where conservation fits in, where carbon farming fits in, where tourism fits in the rangelands.
The new law removes the requirement for environmental representatives to be on the pastoral board, giving pastoralists an automatic majority.
The best conservationists we've got are out here now. Like, the people on the land are doing a fantastic job. You can go and have a look at all the pastoral units assessments in the last 30 years. They've all improved. They've gotten better.
The Primary Industries Minister declined an interview, but insists the law is in need of modernisation and says century-long leases will remain a key part. He says a different law will still allow pastoral leases to be converted to conservation reserves, and that the new pastoral bill will make it easier to start tourism and carbon farming on grazing land. But there's little time to introduce it before the state election in March.
I think it is time for everyone to take a step backwards and really hold a broader and more open discussion about land use in the outback. The assumption that it's just pastoral land and that's it really doesn't hold up.
At Coonamoor, this reserve's been protected from grazing for 100 years. Scientists want us to consider how we want the land outside to look in another century.
The main lesson, I think, is that we have to be very conservative in the use of the rangelands. They have to be treated in a way where you don't push the system beyond a threshold from which recovery is very difficult.
A question about how best to care for this country that the government is yet to answer. Eric Tworczyk, ABC News, Coonamoor Reserve.